Hello everyone, I would like to welcome you to another new video. Um, I just want to show you one situation where I played the most awkward looking opening. Of course engines will, will say I played well, but it was still very awkward. And let's just see the game. This game I played last month, actually, 1 month ago. In fact, almost exactly a month ago. Let's see. So, my opponent, who I have given the honorary title Legendary Opponent, played d4, and I went knight f6 and bishop g5. This is called the Trompovsky attack. The idea is to get an early bit of pressure on the knight, so that perhaps sometimes black can take the knight, play e4, pawn to the center, and get an easy game, a very comfortable game, whilst black is saddled with double pawns. So in order to avoid all of that complication, I played knight to e4. Firstly, blocking the pawn from getting there, and secondly, attacking the bishop. So she wasted a move bringing the bishop back, and I went d5, strengthening my center. f3 was played. Now this is a little bit of a slightly, maybe not dubious, but it's definitely not the best move. Nonetheless, she forces my knight back to where it came from and plays knight c3. I replied to this with e6, opening up this bishop, giving it a nice diagonal so that it can pin the knight. And then, after e4 was played, bishop to b4, a very, very important move. I had to play this move in order for me to get a very good position. This move actually probably gives me an advantage. Of course, the engine will say white is plus 0.38, but humans don't defend like engines do, so who cares? Bishop d3 and now c5. Another shocking move. Well, not shocking, but it's a logical one. I attack this. Completely, white center is completely under fire, and so is her king. So she replied with bishop takes b8. There are many options here for her to play. One of them was d takes c5, but then after d4, a3 takes, and knight to a4, bishop e7. I think I'm quite comfortable. Maybe I'm not fully better, but it's very even. I'm comfortable. I'm gonna bring my knight out, play e5, get a center, go like queen a5, castle, bishop d7, and rook c8. Get a good game. Another option for her was to play a3 over here. Over here after c5, play a3. I would take the knight and play c4, castle, and f6 to break this pawn chain from the center and exploit the fact that I've castled and she hasn't. That's what could have happened. Another possibility was after c5 for her to play e5. Here I would take, exploiting this pin, so that if you take my knight, I take your knight. After bishop d5, bishop d7, takes, knight there. There we go. We get this position. I would have gone knight takes, queen takes is a mistake. And then black is certainly better here, he's even a pawn up. So that's why she resorted to playing bishop takes b8 to try and bank on the fact that my knight is threatening to come here and put devastating pressure on the center, so she removed that powerful piece. Then check, another interesting move, highlighted by this exclamation mark, question mark. The idea is to open up this queen in one move and to help it defend the pawn. Bishop d7 takes, queen takes, and e5. e5 now it attacks the knight, so I could have gone here, I could have gone there. Honestly, I could have even taken and take this and then take the knight. There's so many options here. The options are endless, literally. I went knight to g8, but the engine, what does the engine say? Does it agree with my move? Frankly speaking, it does, which is good. In fact, yes, I did go knight to g8. There we go. So after knight to g8, she played queen to d3, knight to e7, bringing the knight back around so that it can go here and there and attack this. The reason why this opening is so ridiculous for me is because track the movement of this knight, right? Look at this knight. Just keep your eye on this knight. So first it goes to f6, then it goes to e4, then it goes back to f6 since it's chased away. Then it goes, nothing happens. Then the knight is chased back to g8. So it's moved to f6 to e4 to f6 to g8. It's moved 4 times and gone back to where it's come from. Then to e7, then to c6. So this knight has moved 6 times in total. It's ridiculous. It went here. Oops. My arrows are traveled today. Here, 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 here. There and there. Anyway, I then took on the d4 in the center, and knight takes d4. So far, it's a normal game. Perhaps I do have an advantage, but it's not the easiest to capitalize on it. So yeah, knight takes d4, and after a 6-minute thought, I played rook to c8. In fact, speaking of time, this game was a 2-hour each plus 30-second increment long game. So you can tell, very long game. In fact, the time control is written over here, if you couldn't see it. 2 hours plus 30 seconds. Knight to e2 and bishop c5. The idea of this is preventing castling kingside. If she were ever to castle queenside, I would probably play knight b4 and get my own attack here on these squares. I could play d4, bishop to e3, those types of stuff. Queen c6, queen to a6. You know. Anyway, a3 was played. Obvious idea to play b4, and I wanted to play a5. However, I ended up playing a6 and rook d1. In fact, funnily enough, I spent 15 minutes thinking about a6. I spent 15 minutes frozen in this position, so that when I played a6, half of my time was gone in those 17 moves. The reason why I was scared was because instead of rook d1, she missed the chance to play b4. Maybe it's not a good move, but it's still an annoying move. And I would go here and b5. And notice that the evaluation bar has creeped upwards, but I wouldn't be able to capitalize on this mistake at the time. I didn't know what was wrong with it. So yeah, this would get very annoying. I'll probably go like knight a5 or something. Takes, you know the spiel. Takes knight c4. And get some deadly, perhaps lethal control over the dark squares. I ended up concluding that this wasn't too bad for me, so I would allow it by playing a6. So rook d1 was played by her after, admittedly, a 13-minute thought. So, we're even here, and I went to queen to c7. Queen c7 is because I was a little bit scared of the knight coming into e4, jumping into e4 and playing for the dark squares. For example, let's say I castled, right? Normal looking move. However, boom, look at that. My knight, my bishop is attacked by her knight. If I were to take this, then immediate loss. So I would have to do something like this and castles. And the whole point of putting my bishop there on c5 has been wasted. Alternatively, I could go back to a7, allow knight to d6, and that would just be annoying, right? Maybe I'm still better, a lot better, but it's annoying. Didn't need these complications, so after that I went after rook d1, I went queen c7, escaping the file. So what happened next after queen c7? She goes very, very extremely weird move, king to f1. And I've given this 2 question marks because despite her idea basically to go g3 and king g2 and then have an attack on the king side, that was her idea, which makes a lot of sense to me. It's logical, I agree, but it's way too committal. Once you get to the higher levels of chess, you start understanding that the basic principles, such as control the center, castle your king, don't bring your queen out too early, the basic principles for openings, middle games, etc. There are so many situations where they can be broken and you get away with it, and there are many other situations where they should be broken. Here, she is, first of all, breaking the principle that you should castle your king because she played king f1, not castling the king. However, her idea, as I said, is to play g3, king g2, to artificially castle her king. Once again, problem with that is it's too committal. Since now I know exactly what she's going to do, I can set up all my play based around this idea that she's about to play. So perhaps rook d1 also had a role in being overcommittal, because here, you know, the entire reason I fought for like 15 minutes about this move is since obviously apart from this, she has many options. She can castle here. She can play knight d1, knight e3, and then castle here by blocking the bishop's connection to that square. You get the point. After rook d1 and king f1, she's committed herself for life, and there's no turning back. So that's why I castled. And another ugly move, h4. I never really understood this move. Especially, well, of course you understand it. She wants to go h5, h6, but her follow-up wasn't really that wise. So I went bishop to a7 anyway. So the reasoning behind this move is because I figured out that my bishop wouldn't be particularly safe here because it gets... Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to. It gets chased back by pawn to b4 and then pawn to b5, and she has a hook. So in order to escape from my bishop being used as a hook, I just go backwards. Also, potentially, I threaten these types of things where I checkmate her on f2. Because I have a dark squared bishop and my opponent doesn't, my opponent's dark squares will automatically be weak. Anyway, g3 was played. Once again, trying to put the king there. And f6. Honestly, the engine doesn't really rate this move too well, since it basically takes off about a third of my advantage. But I think it's really good because due to this move, I'm able to completely bust open the f-file, leading to, guess what, the king. So that's exactly what happened. Takes, and you see what I predicted to exactly take place. So yeah, f6, which I fought for 6 minutes, takes, rook takes. Alright, at this point in the game, out of the 2 hours that I started with, I had 41 minutes left. So a third of the time left, and my opponent, she had 55 minutes left, about a half. So big time difference. But at the moment, 41 minutes is a lot of time for me to think and do stuff. King g2 was played anyway. And after king g2, knight to e7. I fought quite a lot here for about only 7 minutes. Because once again, it's tough to pick out what you want to do, right? The idea behind this move is to just go around and be a little bit pesky. I can go there. I can even... Another idea I have is to go here, like this, that, and gang up with the bishop. The word gang may be censored on YouTube, so I'm very scared. Another idea is to vacate the c6 square. Vacate the square for the queen. The queen can come here, and I can play d4. Open up this line towards the king. That's another idea. Furthermore, when I play d4, I can also free up this square for my knight in order to get even more easy access to the e3 square. So many different ideas. Knight g6 pressures this pawn, not just this pawn, also that one. I can play rook d8 and there. In fact, I can even go queen c4 since the c file is opened up for the queen. So knight e7 is a very flexible, versatile move. Once again, the utmost emphasis on the word flexibility. Playing a move which maximizes your options. That's an important thing in chess. And funnily enough, the engine actually thinks that move is exactly the best move to play. Oops, I did not mean to do that. Sorry. I didn't go all the way back. The glitch that maybe chess.com should do something about, except it didn't affect me at all, so it's not a big deal. Here, 97. Right? All sorts of ideas, flexibility. The engine rates it as the best move because it opens up the most possible lines. Therefore, it maximizes my potential. The only thing you could argue against when it comes to flexibility in chess is that if you maximize your options possible, it becomes harder eventually to pick one singular option, so you end up wasting more time picking between them. So in Blitz, maybe it's different. In Blitz chess, you would rather base your game around a singular plan rather than maximizing your flexibility because you only have 5 minutes in the game. Here I had 2 hours, and it's precisely in this 97, in this position here, I had 34 minutes left, so flexibility benefited me. She played g4, Very strange move, because it weakens all of this. All of this is now weakened because of g4, especially the f4 and g4 squares, right? All of that. That's why I put two question marks on the move, indicating it's a blunder. In order to exploit that, I went knight to g6. So for this knight to g6 move, I fought for 9 minutes. Out of the 34 minutes, I spent a quarter of them playing knight g6. So yeah, now I was starting to really feel the heat of time pressure. But my basic idea is to attack these two, specifically this one over here, because it works. The knight, the queen, and the rook work together to attack the pawn. So she replied rook d to f1, which makes sense. The reason why she didn't go for you the beginners out there, the reason she didn't do this is because this pawn hangs, and the rook was supposed to be protecting that. So in chess, it's important you know each piece, each role of each piece. If she wasn't able to figure out that the role of this rook at the moment is to protect this and also to support a pawn storm, she would have gone rook h to f1 and lost the pawn. She understood that the role of this is to protect this, so she maintained it on the h file and moved the other rook to protect this. And I found this move. Okay, well, it's pretty much a free pawn. I could have taken it by knight as well, and the same exact thing would have probably happened in the game. However, the reason I didn't do this is because she has moves such as queen to g3. Oh, sorry, it's check. She has moves here, sorry, such as queen to g3. There, that's my bad. And it sort of seeks counterplay. Once again, that I'm still completely winning. I would probably take this, swap off, and play d4. But then again, I wanted to minimize her options, so I found rook takes f4. Takes happened. And if we were to assess this position ourselves, just amongst ourselves, let's start with the material. I am 1 pawn up, and bishop versus knight, so I should be better in terms of material. King safety. My king is much safer than my opponent's king, because the opponent's king has to worry about this queen, this bishop, and this rook eventually, and also a passed pawn in the endgame. The king is terribly unsafe. My king is very safe as long as it goes to h8. At the moment, you could argue that queen e2 and all of this stuff, it can be unsafe. But generally, here, at the moment, it is safe. I just hide it away. Queen activity, you know his queen is better. What else? Pawn structure. Once again, maybe my extra pawn helps me out a lot since I have a passed one. What else? Piece activity. You may argue that this bishop is pretty much undeveloped. You may argue that this rook is doing nothing. You may argue that that rook is doing nothing, and this knight is doing nothing, and everything is nothing, and depression. However, to make a case of myself, I'll protect my bishop by saying, look at that. How is that doing nothing? We have to be able to recognize these types of things. This rook, in one move, gangs up with the queen on the open file. So what do you mean by nothing? You don't mean anything. This rook does nothing. The queen, it is probably white's best piece, honestly. The knight, the only thing it's doing right now is preventing the rook from doing that. Of course, with the queen as well. You get the point. I'm completely winning here. Even the engine agrees that I have a crushing advantage of 2.1 points. Queen e2 was played, and rook f8, which I have labeled as a blunder, because in the game she didn't play this, but she should have done this, so that she would be able to defend everything after this, and it's equal material. It's much harder for me to win now. I would probably do these kind of things, bishop there, bishop back stuff, and maybe queen f7 or queen d6. But you get the point. It's still quite comfortable for me, and uncomfortable for her, because the pieces are all restricted. But my bishop is now restricted by the pawn. So you can make a case to defend that white may be quite equal here. Close to equal, a little bit worse. But you get the point. She missed this chance. She got a little bit scared of this, that. So in desperation, She goes rook to f1, which I have labelled as a mistake. Since I swap off, and it's so easy for me to win. I would say my endgame knowledge, my endgame intuition and awareness has vastly improved since 3 years. That's what allowed me to play bishop to d4. Of course, whatever, if you're attacking the knight, so what, the knight can just move away. The idea is, because the pawn is behind the knight, it has to move in a way that it protects this pawn. If it goes to e2, I take the pawn. If it goes to a4, that is just, what kind of move is that? I get b5 and the knight is trapped. If you try counter-attacking me, I just go back. And your knight is trapped, I'm going to take your knight and win the game. So the knight had to go to d1 in this position. And notice, in an endgame, if you have a bishop like this and a knight like this, oftentimes the bishop controls every single square that the knight can go to. It can go to f2, it can go to e3, it can go to c3, it can go to b2. The bishop controls every single one of those squares. So this is an endgame pattern that sometimes you need to recognize. How to trap a knight in this situation with your bishop. I went king to f7 and then the game continued normally. e5, trying to go e4. Another important rule in these endgames is to make sure generally that your pawns are on the opposite color square of your bishop. The idea being that your pawns control all of these light squares, like this, whilst the bishop plugs in the gaps between the pieces that the squares that the pawns cannot control. That was my idea. King d3, king e6, and c3, attacking the bishop. So in order to maintain control over these two squares, whilst also being in a place where I don't get chased anymore, I went back to a7. I know it looks like the most passive place, but we need to understand that bishops are sniping pieces. They're able to function from the complete other end of the board. b4 was played, which I labeled as a mistake since it makes me much more easily able to win because I have b5. My idea with this move is completely restrict this knight as much as possible. The knight can't get to that square, it can't get to that square, it can't go to this square or this square. It can only move back and forth now between b2 and d1. If it goes to a4, once again the pawn controls this and that. And this, all of it is controlled. And if she were to go with the knight there, makes it very easy for me to win since I just swap off and get a winning king and pawn endgame where I use this passed pawn as a distraction against her king and use my king to take all the pawns. So knight b2 and e4 check and king e5. My plan is to go here and win all these. So a4, I went king f4, takes, g5. Now I went g6, just a cautious move. It's not special at all. It's really, it's not a good move, but once again, it's to stop this. It's to stop her from playing all these annoying moves. Knight d1, once again, the knight is pretty much trapped between these two squares, unless she wants to swap it off, and that she wouldn't want. d4, and then king d2, king f3. Perhaps here, now that I think about it, d3 would have been a better move. But then again, I'm still winning. King f3, check and takes, and I don't want to do that. But here, takes and e2, threatening to promote, with the king able to help the pawn, with the bishop able to help the pawn. Knight d3, bishop f2. Once again, threatening to promote. And here, at this point, I couldn't be asked. I sacrificed the newly promoted queen, swapped off everything to get into a winning king and pawn endgame, since that king is way too inactive. By the time that king gets active, I would have already promoted my pawns, brought my queen back, and stopped this from promoting. You'll see. This happened. This. The king finally does something, but by the time this pawn even gets close to promoting, I have promoted myself on this side of the board. So then this check happens, and then the rest is easy. All I need to do is promote and use my two queens to win, while stopping her from promoting. So this happened. g5. First of all, I blocked this pawn to waste as little time as possible. Then I converted the rest of the game with ease. Promoted, got the pawn out, and checkmate. Checkmate because king can't go there. The queen guards this entire rank, and this queen guards this entire. Did I say rank? I meant to say file. Files are vertical, ranks are horizontal. Um, so yeah, that's how I managed to win this game. To just go back to the start quickly. Dodgy opening where I moved my knight 6 times, but I managed to get extreme control of the center. So in order to alleviate it, she gives up a bishop pair, and I end up with an advantage since I maintain pressure in the center whilst preventing her from castling because of bishop c5. And then I went a6, giving a luft for my bishop, queen c7, then king f1 and rook d1 are the pivotal moves of the game because they commit her structure completely. So then it allows me to commit and play around her weaknesses. f6 takes, and knight e7, probably the best move I played the entire game because it gives me too many options. I mean, so many. Knight g6, once again g4, weakening the squares. Knight g6, attacking them. And then I found this, swap off everything. Play rook f8, which was a mistake since it hangs this pawn. I should have gone queen to d6 on second thought, but she panicked, allowed me to swap off, and I finished the endgame with ease by restricting the knight for most of the endgame. Like doing this, b5, restricting this square as well. Doing this, bringing the king to the king side, and eventually sacrificing the pawn, swapping off everything, promoting both my pawns, and checkmating with 2 queens. There you go. That is the story of one of the most dodgy games I played and how I got away with it. Dodgy because I moved my knight 6 times. There you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do. I've gotten so far 122 subscribers, so thank you very much for your contributions to the channel. For those of you who haven't subscribed, it's completely free. Feel free to do it. Like the video too and share it to those who need it. So I hope to see you in the next video. Have a very nice day and very nice night since I'm recording this at night time.